Productive Pastor 71, How to Learn from an Online Course. Welcome back, friends. Productive Pastor Chad is here. Hope your week's going great. Thursday morning. How's your Thursday morning doing so far? Mine's all right. As you listen to this, if you're one of those early morning listeners, and I know that there's a decent amount of, Thursday morning downloads every week. As you listen to this, I'm driving to Baton Rouge, Louisiana right now. Got a weekend with some colleagues down there, but also doing some one-on-one meetings with some folks, and then also getting together with a group of people to talk about effectiveness. So I hope your Thursday's going good. I'm looking forward to my Thursday, my weekend. But anyway, this episode, we're talking about how to learn from an online course because the Trello course releases next week. I've just been drilling down. I cannot wait to turn this out for you to see this. If you want to know more about that, this is the best way for you to do it. Go to the show notes, revchadbrooks.com/PPP/071. Sign up for the pre-release email. I'm telling y'all, the pre-release folks will get access to this course cheaper than anybody else will. So go sign up for that, get that code, get some free stuff is there, a couple other things. Then the course is out. The course will be live. So the pre-release email there. And then also, are you signed up for the Productive Pastor emails? That email list is where everything gets announced. But also, I write each week on a monthly focus. This month has been on understanding organizational complexity in the normal size church. And so much that comes from the coaching conversations I have with folks. They say, Chad, I'm just absolutely tired. There seems to be so many things going on. I don't know what's going on. How do I handle this? Well, we're talking about complexity on the emails this week. So that's it. That's enough front matter. Let's get into the main conversation about how we learn from online courses. So first of all, my history. And in so many ways, I've been thinking about this over the last few days. This actually coincides with Productive Pastor in its first iteration almost 10 years ago when people began using the internet to talk about learning, to talk about growth in a really interesting way. And I remember there was a company, they're still out. I'm not sure how much they're actually doing anymore, but they were called the Rocket Company. And they would do a day-long preaching conference online. This is 2014, maybe 2013, 10 years ago, way before people thought about this kind of stuff. It was incredibly innovative, but they had a handful of courses. They had a preaching rocket, they had giving rocket. They were highly systematized, 10, 12 modules, and they were expensive. I mean, these things were expensive, but I jumped into it from preaching rocket, fell in love with it, learned to really kind of level up my skill here. And because this was the thing, that this wasn't theological coursework. This was practical, boots on ground, template driven, high action focus, that sort of a piece. And I ended up using several of their courses over the years to learn and to level up my leadership, especially as I went into church planning and I became the head honcho and I realized I had to direct all of this sort of thing. So their preaching rocket course and their giving rocket course was really formational, like 10 years ago. And that's what introduced me to the power of online courses for learning. Did another episode on Productive Pastor a few episodes back about learning and talked about conscious competence and that sort of a thing. And many times I've realized when I hit that level of conscious incompetence, which means I know what I don't know, one of my things I do is I go online to see who can I learn from. Is there a course out there? Is there a little bitty course? Is there a medium-sized course? Is there a big course? It's gotten to the point now to where if there is something that involves like physical hands-on, along the lines of I need to level up my chops type learning, one of my defaults is I'm going to go online, I'm going to see who is talking about this, I'm going to take a few weeks to filter it out, and I'm going to see what types of courses they're offering. So I've had a lot of history with online courses, and I can tell you, though, I've had conversations with people, but then also I've got a couple of courses out there as well now. You can tell the people who actually move through courses and learn, and then also the folks that purchase courses and collect courses and never touch them. I bought a pretty expensive course years ago that I I bought it in anticipation. It was like the goal shirt, that shirt that you buy that you can't exactly fit into, but you buy it so you can try to use it to make yourself want to fit into it one day. I remember I bought a really expensive course one time, and I never opened it, never touched it. People do that. People collect learning. As a person who creates content, sells content, that sort of stuff, like I know when people just like to collect everything and have it just in case you need it. But here's the problem. If you're collecting digital learning just in case you need it, you're going to be wasting a lot of money, but also not, like, you have to learn how to learn digitally online. Like right now, I've got a masterclass subscription, and I've been watching a couple of their different classes, and I learn from those. The Radical Candor masterclass is fantastic, but it's a skill that I knew I needed to develop for this stage of my life. And so I went there. So what I want to talk to you about in this episode is how do you actually learn from an online course? You've made the investment. You've got the thing in front of you. How do you actually learn from it? So a couple of things first. When we go back to the technical learning versus adaptive learning paradigm that I've talked about a lot on the podcast, I had several episodes about it earlier this year. It's a conversation thing many people are having right now, but I think it matters because it helps you understand like what's going on with courses and when to go to an online course. So for technical learning, technical learning is all about the skill. It's all about the approach. It is, I need to learn how to do X. So this person is going to teach me how to do X, and it will give me Y result. It's about skills, about approaches. The Trello course that's coming up is very much a technical learning course. It is, you want to know how to organize your ministry life in a normal sized church because things just seem chaotic and you have to keep a bunch of balls in the air. The Trello course will show you how to do that. It's about developing specific skills. And so sometimes when I have technical learning pieces, I'm going to go find a course that promises me stuff in technical learning. This is the skill you will learn, and if you apply X skill, you will get a Y result. I love courses like this. There's also times when you realize you kind of go back to that conscious incompetence that I don't know what I need to know, or I know what I don't know right now. That's an adaptive situation. That's where you're not having to learn a skill. It's where you're having to grow. It's not about, where a technical learning is a situation. This is how you approach this thing. Adaptive learning, a lot of times, it's where we level up the leadership. The Radical Candor class on Masterclass is about that, because you have to think so much about yourself and how that goes inside of it. The first half of the Becoming Productive course that I have is highly adaptive because it's about understanding your personal view of productivity and ministry leadership. Things that are highly adaptive are going to help you to grow. My 515 email course, which is a free email course, I think 90 people have gone through it since I released that a year ago. It starts running every single Monday. That's the course that folks finish. I can tell the data part on there. People finish because it gets delivered to you in an email that with 15 minutes of tasks that you can knock out every single morning for a week to get clarity over your schedule. You can find a link to that in the show notes. That's adaptive because it's about you looking at what's going on, and then it gives you technical solutions, but you have to do the adaptive learning first. So a lot of times thinking about that, like what is this thing you're going? Because if you just need to learn how to do a certain thing, I need someone to teach me how to do X so I can get Y. Find a course that has a technical promise to it. But if you find yourself in an adaptive situation, make sure you go find a course that's going to teach you how to think about the ways that you might uniquely think about it. I say that because everybody hates to waste money on courses. And so understanding the technical versus adaptive side of courses and learning to discern what the courses promise is very helpful when you're thinking into it, because your goals are going to be different depending on what that looks like. The ways that you come at these courses are going to be very different. Your expectations over the courses and those scenarios are going to be different because you're going to have to plan out how to do the learning. And when you're trying to gain a technical authority or adaptive authority, it's going to change how you learn. 4 ways that we learn from an online course. Here's the pathway that I want you to think through this. It's number 1, why does this matter? Now, you have to find your motivation. If something just seems interesting, like I bought into Masterclass originally, because there was a barbecue course from Aaron Franklin. It just seemed interesting. I watched that course as it was just a television show that I was watching. I watched it for enjoyment. I had no motivation to finish that course. I think it took me a year before I was done watching those videos because it was just, I didn't really care. There's no motivation there. But if you have to learn how to do something and you're spending money to learn how to do it, it's going to change the game. And so go back to that, the conscious competence. The link to that episode will be in the show notes. When you're at a point of conscious incompetence, you can think through, okay, this is why I want to learn this. These are the things at stake. This is what I'm hoping to understand, because this is the deal. The more money you spend on these, and friends, going back to the talk about the whole rocket company, the Preaching Rocket, those were $1,000+ courses. That was a major, heavy investment. You pretty much, one module with that Preaching Rocket course will cost what I think what a Trello course will end up costing. So I really know this is what I need to gain, and are they giving me some sort of a promise that this gain is going to happen? There's also certifications and that sort of stuff. When you're paying for digital learning, the higher the stakes are, the more expensive the course is. The things that you need to do, you need to sort that out, because you need to get your motivation in check. Because that's the thing. When you're just collecting digital content, little things that cost $15, $30, that sort of stuff, or things that are free, the motivation's not that big because there's not too much at stake. You didn't have skin in the game as part of it, but you need to understand, why does this matter before you jump into an online course? As somebody who creates and delivers online courses, I would rather you not get something and avoid being a course collector than just get it and sit it back on your shelf. Trust me, that's a thing. Figure out your motivation. Why does you learning this matter? The second thing here, highly practical, schedule your time for when you're going to work on it. I've told y'all, I've been doing the Radical Candor. On Monday afternoons, when I'm done with all my administrative work, I watch an episode of the Radical Candor course on Masterclass, and I think through what it's going to look like. Now, if you're doing a cohort, we've done learning cohorts before with Productive Pastor. We might do them again in the future. I did the Ship 30 for 30 writing cohort earlier this year. If you're doing an online like sprint cohort, the time is already scheduled. There are live Zoom calls that you have to be part of. So half of that's already there. But then there's also the space that you have to do some work on that. So you have to schedule that out. If it's a self-paced course, which all of my stuff that I currently have out right now is self-paced, that means that you have to make the decision of when you're going to work on it. And so in both those scenarios, what I would suggest is, schedule the time. Give yourself an hour to do the work each week. I like Mondays. And the reason I like Mondays is you can think about it for the rest of the week, because this is the deal. Regardless if it's a self-paced course or if it's an online cohort, there's going to be other work that you need to do to get the big benefit out of it. And you can schedule that throughout the rest of the week. But with a course, make sure you schedule the time, whether it's a cohort or it's a self-paced. Give yourself time to do the learning early in the week, and then give yourself some time to do the work for the rest of the week. Just like you're taking a class for, a bachelor's or a master's degree, you've got to schedule the time to do it. The third thing I find helpful is this: to declare a zone. So many times when I am learning something, I have got a specific reason I am learning it. But this is where some of the sweet sauce comes in. Declare how you're going to specifically be applying this learning, especially if it's a course that's not like super, super directive and you are learning to create X. So find a project or find an area for it. I did a Notion crash course earlier, I think late last year. And what I did was I had a very specific database that I wanted to build out in Notion. And so I used that Notion project and that Notion course simultaneously. So I learned how to use Notion better while I was developing something specific that mattered to me the most. You don't want to look at a course and try to do some whole big, huge integration, because if things don't work out for you, you've got to de-integrate the whole thing, or you might lose interest, or it can be overwhelming, all those sorts of things. And so unless the course is super, super specific, declare a zone of where you're going to apply that course, where you're going to be learning from that course, what you're helping to develop, all that sort of thing. And the last is this, number 4, how to wrap it up. First thing about this, share what you've learned. Get on Twitter, get on the Productive Pastor community on Facebook, that sort of a thing. Share the things that you've learned, saying, hey, this is the stuff we went through, but this is what made such a big difference to me. I wrote a blog post about what I learned as a pastor and as a developer with the Ship 30. I shared that, wrote that article, did a podcast episode about it as well. So whatever avenues you have, share what you have learned because other people can learn from you. And also, half the thing about some of these courses and these cohorts that are popping up now, there are communities that go around it. People always ask me why I have the ship emoji on Twitter. Well, it's because I've gone through Ship 30 for 30. When I see that emoji in somebody else's profile, I know, like, hey, there's this connection that we have between the two of us. And so half the fun of this sort of stuff is finding other people who have gone through the content with you. And one of the best ways to do that is to share what you've learned. The second part of wrapping it up well is this: engage with the creators. Engage with the folks who have made the course. I'll tell you right now, unless it's somebody that's absolutely huge, they want to hear from you about how you're engaging. One of the beautiful things about online learning and courses is these things get adapted. These things get changed. My Becoming Productive course has gone through one major, complete total shift since it came out a year and a half ago, and it probably will go through some more. I know that the Trello course releasing now will probably get adapted and added to, and that sort of stuff. Ship 30 for 30, every single time it sails, and that's the language they use, it changes. And I've got access to those changes. And I'll tell you what, watching them, their whole course is based off of writing on Twitter, and watching how they've adapted and changed over the last year since Elon Musk bought Twitter or bought X, whatever you want to call it. It's a masterclass in adaptation, is watching how they've done that. So engage with the people who have made the course because they can learn from you. They want to hear from you. They also just love hearing how folks liked this labor of love, because for so many people, it's not about trying to gain an income off of this. It's about they want to create and they want to help. And there's a drive, especially for me, a deep, deep drive to help other people. So let folks know what you liked, because you never know what your suggestions, what your thoughts, you might find yourself, your opinion or your idea might have a pretty major shift in the next version of that course. But also, and this kind of goes back with the share you've learned, find other people who are doing with it and engage with them. Bounce back inside of that. Something I learned in Ship 30 for 30, tag people. Because you can grow up an amazing community. And what I loved so much with Ship 30, every time I've gone deep into it, is finding other faith-based writers that are writing about the whole larger idea of Christian faith and ministry and leadership. And we get going, the ping pong game that goes back and forth between everyone there, it's absolutely beautiful. And so as you're wrapping up your learning, share what you've learned, but engage with the folks who've created the course and also the people that are doing the course alongside of you, especially if this is cohort-based. If it's cohort-based, it's 10 times more fun to roll that way. But I've been wanting to do this episode for a while because I don't know how many people in ministry, courses are a normal part of ministry. It's a big thing in ministry. I've got other friends out there who create great courses. My friend Brandon Kelly creates great preaching courses. I've got a lot of folks that do this kind of stuff, but what I've not heard people talk about in the faith-based space is, how do you take these things and learn from these things? Do you need to go to seminary or you need to take a bunch of courses? And in my mind, it's two completely different things. Courses are there when you need to have a technical skill that you need to learn, or you're hitting an adaptive challenge and there's a course can help you think your way through that. So hit the show notes up, revchadbrooks.com/PPP/071 for any links that might be here. You can always engage with me on social. I'm at everything at Rev Chad Brooks. Come hang out with us in the Productive Pastor community on Facebook, the Productivity Party. I would love to see there. Over 1,000 pastors are part of that group, and we have fun conversations there. But until next time, I'm Chad Brooks. I will see you, and hopefully the next episode I'll be telling you, hey y'all, the Trello course is out. Let's come learn together and talk about one of my favorite tools that's out there. And I will see you back on the next episode.